Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Okran, welcoming you on behalf of Team Springboard. This is your most inspirational show and that place where the greatest minds in the world converge. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Rocher Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. So today we continue our conversation on finding yourself. By the way, are you missing? Finding yourself. I read a scripture that said the prodigal son came to himself. So possibly he had lost himself. Finding yourself. How do you find the central pivot around which your life revolves? How do you find your true identity? And how do you articulate that identity to somebody who wants to know who you really are? What are the things that you can see represent your true self? To help us explore these thoughts, I have a very good friend of comfort and I over the years who has the answers because she's an author, a business executive, and she's a marketing expert. My friend Petra Aba Asamoah. Petra, good to see you.
So wonderful to see you, Rev. Thank you for having me.
It's a blessing.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So let's unpack this subject that many people struggle with. So I'll read a quote from Aristotle who says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And my second quote from our Lord Jesus Christ himself, the famous one, Matthew 16, verse 13. Who do men say that I am? Followed by who do you say that I am? How important is this conversation about identity and uniqueness?
Thank you, Rev, and thank you for having me here. I think that it's the most important conversation a person can have with themselves. Shakespeare also said, to thy own self be true. You can fluff anything, you can pretend about anything, but you really need to understand yourself to be truly fulfilled. I would say that it's one of the main things that a person has to recognize, and as the sooner they recognize that, the better they would be for themselves and for the expression of their true being. Because it's really just you being who you are. But there's a journey towards that point. And it must be intentional, it must be deliberate, and it must be done in a way that keeps you focused on why you're really here, who you're for, what you should be doing. Identity is so important that if you miss the proper definition of it, you can waste a lot of time. But if you're intentional about it also, there's so much to gain.
If I'll come to the critical questions that you need to ask to be able to determine who you really are. But if this is the most important conversation, borrowing from your thoughts, why don't people have these conversations with themselves?
I think maybe sometimes the function of socialization. I would say that I was very blessed, not as early as you would expect, but maybe in my early 20s to begin to be exposed to conversations like this. And that helped. So it's a function of socialization. Sometimes socialization can be very confusing because there's this question I feel that is a bit of a problematic question. When you ask like a 5 or 6 year old, what do you want to be in future? A lot of times we ask that question, but we don't walk the child or the young person through the path of what does it mean to become? So we're just asking them, what do you want to be in future, as if it's a profession, it's a destination. So they have to define it with a profession. I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, I want to be a journalist. But there's a path towards becoming that we don't walk them on. And that question of what do you want to become in future is very confusing for a lot of people. Some people end up in their 50s and still don't know what they want to become. They're still battling with, should I be the person I wanted to be when I was 5 or 6? And because they didn't become that profession, they feel like they failed or they're not who they wanted to be. That for me is one of the key things. So we're not having the right conversations as early as we should be having those conversations. And then even when we have the conversations, the content is wrong. So it's misplaced. Most of the time is loaded with lots of pressure. And when I say pressure, unrealistic expectations. So if you ask a 5 or 6 year old or even a 15-year-old, what do you want to become in future? And at that age, they've not fully discovered what they are good at, what their interests are, what excites them, what they have energy to do. Then you're asking them the wrong question, and without empowering them to be able to walk on the journey towards full realization of their potential.
That question will be the trigger point for further exploration.
Absolutely. But the thing is, who is at the other side of exploration? Who is helping them answer those questions? And that's why I think that we have a lot of work to do.
Right. So you keep mentioning journey. Help us to appreciate what you call the journey, the pathway, that process. Help us to appreciate the process and the milestones on that journey.
So it will possibly start from the point of inquiry. What should I be doing? Who am I? Can I be anything beyond what my current circumstance is? So you spoke at the beginning about the prodigal son, and he actually said he came to himself. So there's a point of that realization.
I love that expression.
Yeah, he came to himself.
Where was he?
Exactly. You can be lost in your thoughts. You can be lost in circumstance. You could be lost in survival mode. But there's a point where an individual needs to come to themselves and ask themselves, where am I? And where do I want to get to? So there's that starting point. And then there's the point of sitting down and deciding, this is where I want to go. And then the work that you need to put in to get yourself to that point. And I say point not to mean that you arrive and say, okay, yay, we've gotten there, now we pack our tools and just relax. But I point in terms of, it's now that you begin to realize, okay, I'm on the right path. I am on the path of full expression. I'm on the path of fulfillment. I'm on the path of ensuring that why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing is being realized, and just sticking to that. So I would say it's like a 3-point journey. The point of coming to yourself, then the point of deciding what needs to be done, and then the third is doing the work.
Let's start from what you call the point of coming to yourself. So that is based on an assumption that you probably were lost.
Lost, yes.
But can this conversation begin right at the beginning? You mentioned a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a precocious child, very full of energy and excitement. Mm-hmm. Can conversations begin at that point that seek to point you to what you are good at or what you could become? And if so, what form should they take? That will be different from the way you say we get it wrong sometimes.
What I find helpful now is allowing exploration early, exposing the young person to options, for the informed older person to be able to observe certain patterns and interests, and then exposing them to the possibilities, but not boxing them and saying, because you like to talk, you have to be a lawyer. Because you like to paint, you have to be an artist. Because creativity has expressions in different ways. And when we begin to box that young person so early, that's when we create that framework where forever they feel like, okay, my mother said I was going to be an artist, or I was going to be an architect because I can draw, and now I'm not an architect, so that means I failed. So it's really that we provide an opportunity for exploration. We provide an opportunity for them to try different things, but also in a guided manner. Because then if you just allow it to be open-ended forever, it might be exploration forever. But exploration is a good place to start from. The other thing I would also say is that just providing them good examples of what is possible. So exposure is another very important thing. If a young person observes and sees what is possible, maybe not in their immediate environment, but in another environment, then they begin to say to themselves, oh, this is possible. There's some situations where exposure may not necessarily be an option because it's never been done, but you also want to expose them to something that has never been done by another human being. So you know how there can be groundbreaking innovations and you're wondering, how did this person come about something like this? It's never been done. No one has thought about it. Exposing a young person to someone like that or a circumstance like that gives them the sense that it's possible. I too can do something that has never been done. I can think and become something that has never been conceptualized. That's how things begin to unfold. Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that on this journey that you mentioned, you talked about exposure. So this young person growing up is exposed to different things. They have different interests. They love one thing at a point, then they love another thing at a different point. Not necessarily a zero-sum game of love one, hate one, but as they go on the journey, they keep finding different things that they are fascinated about and that they enjoy. Is there anything wrong with that?
Absolutely not. And this is coming from someone who was very confused at the beginning. But I got to the point of realization that there are people who are actually multi-potentialites. So they have multiple potentials. And I had to get to the point of recognizing that, yes, you like different things. You can do multiple things. But I should thank you for that, because very many years ago, we had a conversation and you said, there's like a core anchor talent and then there are supporting ones. So you need to determine what's the anchor and then what are the supporting things that you do and focus. So not necessarily being one thing. And I say that you can be a jack of many trades and you can be a master of many trades also. But you need to focus to developing just that raw interest to become skillful at it. Because if you're skillful at nothing, then there's nothing that you're offering to your community, nothing you're offering to the world, you're of really no value. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to do different things at different times, but you really need to ensure that you are building capacity and getting to the point where you're valuable in those things. So it's not like this year I want to sing, the next year I want to write, the next year I want to be a TV host. Are you a TV host at the cutting edge to the point where someone wants to pay for your service, wants to exchange value for what you're offering, wants to participate in what you're doing? That has to be a conversation that we think about. So it's good to explore, but at some point you also have to determine what's like the anchor and what are the other things around it.
How do you deal with the fact that somebody is doing something, they are making good money, and you say, this thing I can do it too. I'm telling you, I really can do it. And so you end up following that one. And then something else comes up and you're saying, this one too. And so sometimes the economic conversation, the economic pool drives people in different directions. How important is the link between interest and economics?
Very important, Rav.
Okay, let's talk.
I mean, we've had so many conversations, so let me refer to one. I think some years ago, you actually said something that if your passion you can't fund your passion, it can become a frustration. So there are people who say things like, I'm passionate about this activity, I want to do it, maybe humanitarian work, but it doesn't pay your bills. You can be so frustrated that you begin to ask yourself, is that really my purpose? So did God really say I should do this? You begin to question yourself. So you really have to find that balance between economic well-being and just doing something because you like it. And that's where sometimes young people have a struggle with their parents, because the father or the mother is saying, go and be an accountant because I want you to have a profession and be able to pay your bills. And they're saying, no, I don't have any interest in that. I want to do something else. So I tell young people that listen to the conversation from a place of love, because really what they're saying is, I'm not going to be able to fend for you forever. At a point, you need to be in charge of your own bills and be responsible for yourself. So what can you do to ensure that you are responsible for yourself, you're financially independent? And that's where we need to be very clear on what your job is versus what your life's work is. Your job, you have to have something that pays your bills, something that ensures that you're not just surviving, but you're financially capable. You don't just get up and say, I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not going to go. There's nothing worth doing, especially when it's economically rewarding, that you will feel like doing every day. I mean, even for me as a writer, there are times when I sit down and I really don't feel like doing it. We say it's writer's block. It could be because you're exhausted. But if you have a deadline, you have to finish the work. And it's not exciting work at that point. So like, yeah, I'm excited, I'm a writer. But there's work to be done to actually finish a book. There's you sitting down and focusing on it. So we need to separate the two, because we talk about passion as if it's a feeling. and there's no hard work involved, but there's a lot of hard work involved. And that economic balance versus interest is a key one. So for a lot of young people who are saying, oh, my parents want me to do this and I want to do this, really what they're asking you to do is think about the economics of it, because you have to be financially independent at some point.
The cash is king. So when all is said and done, beyond all the passion, you still have to pay transport. The Uber driver will not say you are passionate about art and therefore sits in the car for free. You have to pay. And that is a hard reality that Petra Aba Asamoah, my guest for today, is bringing to the conversation about finding yourself. And so for all of us in this conversation today, yourself listening, watching at home, and Petra and I in the studio today, we are just exploring that big question. Who do men say that you are? And who do you yourself say that you are? And beyond all that, how to be true to yourself. So far, we've been talking about the fact that for every one of us, there are some conversations we must have with ourselves that we sometimes don't have, and therefore travel the journey for a while and realize that, no, this is not really who I am. And we've been asking, if this is so important, why don't we ask these questions enough? And then we've come to the question of the finance or economics versus the passion. And it was also speaking about the journey, the fact that along the way, different interests can come up and they all are important. Let me come to you, back to you, Petra, and explore the fact that the things that you say you love or the things that gravitate around your life may not necessarily also be linked with your professional life in any way. What happens then?
So when you're just talking about finding the balance between the economics and the passion, one of the things that occurred to me is, so someone is in a job and they're like, this is not what I should be doing. Should they just stop? No. And I find that that's a very critical decision point where you need to determine what are the things that you have to express as a person that will make you truly fulfilled. So I got to that point in my journey where I discovered that there were things I had to do to feel well. One of those things was teaching. One of those things was storytelling. And so you need to determine for yourself, is there a way I can express this part of me without jeopardizing what I do to pay my bills?
So is it possible, for instance, with what you just described, it's a perfect example. Can, let's say, a medical doctor like Teddy, who writes so well, can he live his full life professionally as a doctor and yet express something inside him that he loves doing all his life and not feel that he lost something?
Absolutely. And we have so many examples of that.
Let's explore that
so,
one. And hello, Teddy Tosime. Thanks for making your story available
awesome writer.
I love writers. I love writers. So I have to mention Teddy in this instance.
So it's a very, very big possibility. It's a reality. There's so many examples of people like that. It's just you deciding that I am a person of so many parts, and that's okay. And deciding that you're not going to allow yourself to be boxed by anybody's definitions or labels. So somebody says that you're a pastor, just be a pastor. Why? Why do you have to just be a pastor? Yes, you don't have to be anything that anybody says. You can be so many things. And so that's the thing. We need to realize that it's okay to be ourselves and all of the versions of ourselves that we believe we are, without the pressure of this is what society expects. So every year, one of the things I do is I determine how I want to be described. So in one... In this year, if you invite me to an event, you would see business executive, marketing Maven, writer, and leader. And I don't want you to tell me, no, you have to say marketing executive, or you have to use my job title to describe me. That's for me to determine, not for anybody to determine. It's a journey of intentionality because it's you. Okay, it's not anybody else's life. It's just you. So it's really what you determine how you want to present yourself to the world. But you can be so many things. You don't have to be just one thing.
So that brings me to the part of the conversation I've been itching to explore. The nomenclature, the description. So you clearly articulated how you want to be described. help me to appreciate the process that leads to that confidence to say, I am. I mean, I once did a study of the number of times Jesus Christ said, I am. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. Doesn't it take some confidence to say I am?
It does.
Help me to appreciate. I mean, how do you, out of all the things you are interested in, because if I sat here, because I know you, I can see that you are a speaker, you are a swimmer, you are a walker, you are a mother. No, I can give you 15 things I know about you that did not appear in business executive, marketing, Maven, author, and leader.
Yeah.
How do you select the 3 or 4 that you say, this is me, or at this point in my journey, this is me, when there are 12 other things that somebody will say, even this 12, you do it better than me, but you didn't add it to your summary. How do you find the, let's say, the leading or top or central 3?
I think it's a journey. I think I like the word journey. It's a journey of self-awareness. You spend time with yourself. You need to spend time objectively with yourself, reflecting on yourself. I would also say that it's also a function of the immediate circle. You have to be able to identify people who can tell you truthfully what you're good at. If you begin to recognize also what your community demands of you, it could be an indication of what they've recognized that you're capable of doing. So if you continue to have requests for a particular solution, that can give you a sense of, okay, people have recognized I'm good at this, and this is the type of value they expect from me. So one, self-awareness. It can be quite a scary process, but you have to go put yourself on that journey. And I want to appreciate, I think 10 years ago this year, ICGC Christ Temple, we did the 20-year life development plan. At the time, I was 10 years younger. And I remember very well, we had to write your age at the time and the age you'll be in 20 years. And I remember thinking, no, I don't want to think about that. But 10 years has arrived. And in that exercise, there was a portion that says, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered by your family, your immediate community, and an external community? And writing that just made me so much more aware of the work I needed to put in. So there's a journey of that type of discovery. It's not just sitting down. Sometimes it will take writing. It will take guidance from a coach. It will take you going on a certain type of thought process. But it takes time. Your example at the beginning that Jesus asked, who do men say that I am? He was asking a question of other people. So the immediate community also is very important. And not just having people, there were some disciples like, oh, you're Elijah, you're this, you're a prophet. But Peter, who happens to be my namesake, said, you are Christ, the Son of the living God. So there has to be that person or those people who can clearly tell you the truth about who you are. And that must align with what you've been thinking about, so that you don't just listen to anything. Like, you have a very hoarse voice that may not break into a particular market, and because you like singing in your bathroom, you just say, okay, now I'm going to be a musician. Pavarotti. Yes. There have to be people. So that brings in the conversation around mentors and coaches. Objective people, not just your paddy friends who always say, oh, yeah, you're good at it, but objective people who say, no, Petra, I don't think that starting a business is the best thing for you at this point. I think you should give yourself a few more years in corporate and then begin to build it gradually, rather than saying, no, I'm fed up, I'm just jumping into it. You need that type of environment, because it's so important that, yes, you'll make mistakes in life, but at least you don't make mistakes that you can avoid. And that's where, if you have a good set of people around you, they can help you avoid some of those pitfalls.
Pitfalls, challenges, questions, and exploration. So if you just joined us, this is a conversation with Petra Aba Asamoah. And the topic for today on Springboard Virtual University is finding yourself, as if you were missing, but finding yourself. And our focus is on finding your uniqueness. What makes you different from the person next to you? Even twins, identical twins, are unique in their own selves. And Petra is saying that, among other things, she's saying, there's a certain self-awareness a person must have, or a certain journey, a certain reflection that one must have. And she says there are three things you can do. One is personal reflection about who you are and asking yourself tough questions about yourself. The second one is the counsel of a mentor, somebody who happens to be above or ahead of you in the journey, who can look at you and tell you what you don't know about yourself. The third one, she says, is societal or community demand. If people keep asking you to do something, it's a pointer to the fact that you are good in that, and there's a demand for that service or some value being generated, and that could be a pointer to the real you. When I come back, I'm going to find out how all these beautiful principles have been used by Petra herself to find herself to the point where she can tell you three things that you should use to identify her or introduce her when she comes to a function that you are hosting. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and Enterprise Group, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. Let's go for a break. When we come back, how do you find yourself, and how has Petra used these principles to come to the place of blessed assurance? Please don't go away.
Hello? Bye.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, a bird is the word. Bird is the word. Well, don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is the word. Bird, bird, a bird is the word.
To consider the implications.
Hello? Everybody knows that the bird is the word. When a bird, a bird, a bird, a bird.
Whether it's 1924, 2024, or 2124, we've always known that you are driven by your sense of safety and well-being. It is what drives us to see you through from start to finish, from small to big. And in the last 100 years, as you have evolved, so have we also expanded to serve you in many ways. From cradle to grave, with expertise in insurance, life, pensions, properties, health, and for those beautiful memorable goodbyes. It's 2024, and in all our markets, our pedigree is recognized, our strength respected, our expertise valued, and our solutions sought by all who desire an advantage in life. Experience the time-tested and truly trusted 100 years legacy of Ghana's oldest insurer. Take charge of your future now. Insurance, life, pensions, property management, funeral services, health insurance. Enterprise, your advantage.
This be me, Kobe, aka Kobe Boga, KB for short. And this is my sweetheart, Obahima. Today, I get big surprise for her. Charlie, gone are the days I couldn't spoil my girl. Now I'm engaged to the woman of my dreams. Don't just look at my success. To get here, I had to follow the process. Out of nowhere, I lost my job. But I believe in humble beginnings. I got an idea that I knew I could grow. I started from a small setup, then invested in growing my own coconuts. I then grew my product lines. Now, I sell to many supermarkets in the country. Fellow young Ghanaians, trust the process and keep hope alive.
Take advantage of agri-business through the Ghana Grows program. Ghana Grows, Hope Day.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university, and to this exciting conversation about finding yourself. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by the Enterprise Group, MTN Ghana, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. talking about the enterprise group, let me remind you of your enterprise tip for the day. And the question today is about understanding exclusions. Why is it important to know the exclusions in your insurance policy? And the answer is very simple, just so that you know what your policy does not cover, and understanding prevents surprises during the time of making your claim. So if you know what your policy does not cover, you may then go for supplementary coverage where needed. This is brought to you by the Enterprise Group, and the number to call them on is 030-263-4777. Email my info@myenterprisegroup.io. info@myenterprisegroup.io. Enterprise, your advantage. Talking about finding yourself, if you want to find out more about opportunities in agriculture, agribusiness, and technical and vocational skills, the number to call to reach the Ghana Grows call center is 030-8255-775. 030-8255-775. And you'll find some exciting interventions in the agribusiness space that you can take advantage of. Petra Aba Asamoah is my guest for today, and she calls herself a business executive, a marketing maven, and a leader, and also an author. The question I would like to ask, how does a person arrive at that big summary in your life? And what is the journey to arrive at that beautiful summary or description of your life? Let's find out from Petra where she began and how she got to the point of conviction. Petra, let's start from where it all began. Did you always think you would be into marketing?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I actually, so my first book, Sales 101, the first chapter, which you gracefully wrote the foreword to, the first chapter, I talk about how confused I was at the beginning of my career. All I knew for a fact was I wanted to make money. I've always known that.
Which is not bad.
Not bad at all. And it's taken me a while to be very unapologetic about saying that I wanted to make money.
What was the conflict?
The conflict is sometimes people say things like, oh, you have to be passionate about something, or you just have to work for passion. I like the word passion, but I also feel that it must be commercially rewarding, because that's what sometimes also makes you want to get up and do the hard work. So it took me a while to get to that point. But at the beginning, I was very confused, but I wasn't confused about the money side. I've always known it, because just before I was leaving university, unfortunately, I lost my dad, and I'm a daddy's girl. So in 2014, when I was in level 300, when he passed, it just dawned on me that, so that's like one of my turning points where, even though I've always been very serious and very intentional, as I was leaving school, I knew, okay, your dad is not going to be around to be like the supports. So, madam, you have to figure out your life. And so financial independence was like a very, very important thing on my mind. So if it wasn't going to help me be financially independent, pay my bills myself, it wasn't going to be an option. So I had to give up some opportunities for that. When I was leaving school, I used to be a panelist on a radio show, which I thought, okay, maybe it's something I want to do, but it wasn't paying me. So I just said, no, it's not an option. So going into national service, the focus was, I need to get a national service placement where I could be recruited and then get a job. And when I went into the organization, I went with one agenda on my mind. And the agenda was to be retained. So from the get-go, I worked my everything off to ensure that I created the value that will make me. I remember telling a friend of mine that I wanted to work so hard that if they had to let go everybody in the organization, they would say, no, Petra, we're keeping here. And that was just, I was so intentional about that. So months before national service time was over, I was already asking questions. Am I going to be retained? Are you going to get me? I wasn't shy about it. I was very upfront about it. But I would say that, so one, my dad's passing, and the second turning point was my first appraisal. I sat before my boss at that time, and he asked me, so where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? And in my young 24-year-old mind, I thought the best answer to give was, and I'm quoting myself, I think I'll be out of this job because it's very boring. That's what I said.
Seriously?
And I must say that God bless my boss at the time, Isaac Ashon, Uncle Isaac, as we affectionately called him. Beyond that, what I want to call audacity, he saw potential. So rather than saying, okay, so let's start packing you out now, he saw where to channel. So he asked me a follow-up question. So what do you see yourself doing? Why do you think this activity is boring? At the time, I was a reservations and ticketing officer, I think at the call center. And it was very routine for me. So it was like consistently doing the same thing. So my interaction with him at that appraisal opened up the sales opportunity for me. So he said, okay, I think you'll do better where you're interacting more with people, doing things more independently, trying to find solutions to things. And that's how I pivoted from customer service into sales. And then a year into my sales job, I was like, okay, have I made the right decision? Because it was very difficult. And it was difficult because I had no clue what I was doing. And so that's also where acknowledging really where you're at becomes important. So rather than just saying, oh, I like it, it's exciting, are you succeeding at it? And I wasn't succeeding at it. I was finding it very, very difficult. It was difficult prospecting, it was difficult qualifying prospects, difficult meeting people, difficult introducing yourself to people you don't know. And that's what led me into marketing, because I asked myself, what can I do better? How can I succeed at this? I needed to succeed at it because I had to pay my bills. Nobody was going to pay rent. Nobody was going to do all of that. That's how I got into the journey of looking for knowledge. So if you're in a sales job, what type of knowledge do you need to get better at it? I found marketing. Okay, what qualification do I need to really get to the cutting edge? At the time, it was the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So I went and I took a course. And I said, okay, it's exciting. I'm learning things. It's helping me understand better what I'm doing at work. So even though there was like internal on-the-job training, I didn't understand the theory of what I was doing. I wasn't grounded in it. I didn't understand why customer relationship management was supposed to be delivered in a certain way. I didn't understand why you needed to, for instance, qualify your prospect list before you go meeting them, because you needed to be very clear on, do they have a need for what I'm offering? And that's what marketing did for me. So once I got into the marketing journey, the idea was like, okay, finish it, get to the top. So I chatted, I completed that. And then I went onto the path of how can I begin to commercialize some of this knowledge that I have. That's what led to the book. That's what led me to going to do my MPhil so I could teach. That's what led me to doing training. So one thing has just led to another, but it definitely started from a point of confusion.
There's only one thing that you've been very clear about from the beginning, which is the cash.
Yes.
Having said that,
yes,
the transition from survival as the basic consideration to the point of fulfillment, and then the quest for the theoretical acquisition. Help us to appreciate that aspect of it, where you say, I've stumbled on what I love, but beyond loving it and doing it almost naturally, we also need the theory of it. Help us to explain
it. So I recognized quite early that it wasn't just good enough to like something or to say you can do something. You need to do it excellently. You need to do it with a competitive edge. You need to have a compelling reason why people want it from you. And I recognized also that to be able to do that, you needed to take time to learn. So we know about Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule. There's work that you need to put into it to make it world-class, to make it sellable, to make people want to appreciate it and purchase from you. And that's why I found that investing in knowledge was key. But not just knowledge, the most relevant knowledge. So I'm an advocate for, if you give me a job and I don't know anything about it, I would ask myself, what skill set do I currently have I can transfer? And then what do I need to do to close the gap? So in 3 to 6 months, I will close that gap.
How do you transition? I've known you to do, let's say, airline. I've known you to do media. I've known you to do textiles. Are the skills that you are talking about easily transferable between different industries, especially at the very highest level?
I won't say easily, but intentionally, yes. And I learned this also. I've had so many wonderful people around me. I learned this from a former boss of mine, Norman Williams. At the time I met Norman, he was in the airline industry, but in our interactions, he has spoken to me about he had worked in banking, he had worked in IT, he had worked in so many different things. And so for him, the lesson was, how can you be relevant wherever you go? And that's one of the reasons why I do not think that it's necessary for you to be so excited about job titles. Rather be excited about what skills can you always own and lay claim to. A job title can be taken away. It can be changed. But your skill set is yours. That's your value. Nobody can take that away from you. And so in terms of transitioning, you really have to be able to determine. So one of the things that I have like a list of core competencies that I know would work wherever I go.
Like?
One, a high business acumen. Somebody who understands how to spot opportunities and take advantage of them. Someone who is a doer, not just someone who talks or writes, but somebody who can actually see the work through and make things happen. Someone who is an intentional network builder, someone who builds relationships, because you need people to support whatever vision you have. Whatever you want to do in any organization, there are people who are going to help you, whether it's to close deals, to be the boots on the ground. All of those things are important. Even recognizing the type of people you should recruit into your team can be dependent on the type of network. So I want somebody who is wonderful at maybe somebody who is a good videographer. Because you've worked in the space, I can say, Rev, do you have any recommendations? Rather than going through the lengthy process of looking at a very large pool. So that can be an advantage. If you even take things like being able to work in a diverse environment, different skill sets, different generations, different abilities, but being able to put all of that diversity together, that's a skill set. Sometimes just you recognizing those broad competencies becomes an opportunity for you. And that's one of the things I've done. So every time I go into an interaction with a prospective employer or someone I want to do something with, it's very easy for me to show that I may not know anything about textiles now, but in 6 months, I'll be one of the best people you can talk to about this product.
Let's talk about articulating your value proposition. I mean, so if I hear you right, over a period of time, you've gotten to know the core competencies that you possess. You've gotten to know your strengths. You've gotten to know your abilities. And to some extent also your weaknesses, because you know what you run away from.
Yes.
So having done that now, those of you who are experts in marketing say everyone must know your unique selling proposition. Or if I want to say it simply for those who will see that as a technical word or phrase, what is unique about you or the unique value that you bring to any conversation? And they summarize and say that you must summarize it into an elevator pitch. That if someone met you in the lift and said, who are you and what value do you bring? You should be able to see that in 30 seconds or in a minute. Let's talk about why that is important first. And let's demonstrate with you. At least, let's try it.
Okay.
So why is it important for everyone to have an elevator pitch or a summary of their competencies or their uniqueness?
So whether we accept it or not, each of us is a product that somebody else sees as a solution to a problem, or we need to see ourselves as a product that's a solution to a problem. We're all here to solve maybe 1, 2, 3, or multiple problems. But there's someone we are here for. If we don't articulate that value properly, not just in words, in our actions, in how we present ourselves, we might never be able to solve the problems that we've been designed to solve. So that for me is the key thing, that we need to recognize that we're here for a reason. Who are we for? And what are we supposed to be doing? And then put in the work to ensure that we are good at it, we are communicating it properly, and then we're actually doing the work. Because you can sit in your room and be dreaming about your vision and never do the work involved to actually realize that vision. And that's one of the things, even for people of faith, we need to move beyond just conceptualizing and actually doing the work. So we're talking before the interview about how Isaac and his men were digging wells. They would dig one well, there will be battles around it, they move and they dig another one. So they got to a point where there was no longer any argument. And he named that well Rehoboth, because the Lord has made space for us.
Okay.
Before you get to the point of space, there's work to be done. There's the digging, there's the moving around, there's sometimes even the fighting.
To get to the place.
To get to the point, but you need to get to that point.
So in terms of the importance of articulating it, you've helped us appreciate it. But the actual crafting, So let's test it with yours, for instance. Okay. If somebody met you on the plane or at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport or London Heathrow Airport, somewhere on your way to an international conference, you meet this Bill Gates guy you heard about so much, and in the lounge, just a couple of minutes, and then the flight is being called, or the flight has been called, you're on the way to the flight. Tell me about yourself. What would you say in that 1 minute?
I'm a deliberate, empowering leader. I bring positive change wherever I am, and I'm a commercial leader.
Of all the things you've told me in the past almost 1 hour, why did you select those?
Those are the most important things that I want the world to know about. Because
so one,
deliberate and empowering.
Empowering commercial.
Deliberate, empowering commercial. The commercial is the money part.
Okay.
That's very important in a business. If you're not making money in a business, it's just a hobby. And I don't mean that even not-for-profit has to be money. It has to be impact. So in terms of commercial viability, I mean, what is the impact of this activity? So I'll always ask, what's the bottom line? What are we trying to achieve? My mind is so programmed to results that I tend not to miss it. I'm constantly thinking about that. Deliberate means that I'm very strategic in the things that I do and how I do them. Even the very simple things that you would not notice, I've thought about them very intentionally. I write them down. I reflect on them before I act. Empowering because people are not things. They are assets and beings that whilst you're building a business or building a team, you need to think about how are these people also going to be, how are they going to benefit? So what's in it for them? How would someone I've worked with look back and say, I worked with her for 2 months, I worked with her for 1 year, I worked with her for 5 years. And because I worked with Petra, these are the values that I've been able to inculcate. This is why I behave this particular way. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that I've been blessed to have so many very, very good people who've taught me things, who I've observed from. I want to be that person for somebody else also. So I tell even national service people or interns who come to my office that I want you to be able to say wherever you go, if you mention that you worked with me, there should be value. No one should say, oh, you worked with Petra and you're behaving like this. No. That shouldn't happen. So I'm so intentional about that if you have an encounter for a few minutes with me, I want to leave you with something, a piece of me that you would also pay forward to someone else.
And that is intentional, empowering, and commercial. Can you say it again? So you met Bogus and you said what? I am a what?
I'm a deliberate, empowering leader. I bring change, positive change wherever I am. And I'm a commercial leader, pretty much.
So for you, these 3 words are the 3 tools on which your life thrives. Do they also define what you will not do in life?
Yes.
Help us to understand that part.
Yes.
You talk about what you will do, but what you will not do.
So I've come to realize that your values are your compass. They're things that if it won't tie into the end, there's no point. There's really no point investing. So I was talking about being very results focused. Is this activity going to support the end game? If this wasn't going to tie into the end goal, it's not going to bless anybody. It's not going to be impactful. We're just coming to burn time. I won't show up. I will just respectfully decline. So I've become so deliberate and skilled at saying no.
Oh.
Without apology.
Please. The skill of saying no is the last point I'd like to canvas before we round up this conversation. How do you say no without offending people? It must be a skill.
Yes, it is. First of all, recognizing that you're not for everybody. You're not jollof rice. You're not Ghana jollof.
Oh, Ghana jollof is for everybody.
So if you recognize that, you would be very clear on where you should and should not be open to. So that for me is one thing. But secondly, that time is so precious that you must invest it in what is necessary. So it's what is necessary to what you believe is necessary, not what everybody else believes. Is there an emergency for you, or is it an emergency for someone else? I always joke around the fact that science has not developed the point where they can clone me. So I decide where I am now. If I wasn't there, would the show still go on? For me, for the other person, for the other people. So if, for instance, I'm deciding where to spend my weekend or how to spend my weekend, I'll be very clear on, is my presence impactful enough here or somewhere else? Should I rather just spend the time recuperating, lying down in bed and having a cup of tea? Is that necessary at this point? If the answer is yes, then yes, that's what it is. And I'll just respectfully decline and say, unfortunately, I'm not available. And I've stopped even giving reasons. Because sometimes when you want to explain, like they say, you explain, tire, no evidence. But there are times where you just have to decline. You can't be everywhere and do everything.
One of the major reasons I decline is the humble reality that you cannot be a master of everything.
Yeah.
And so while you may think I can be good in something, if I know I will not deliver the exceptional value, I'd rather say no than regret after I allow myself to be dragged into what I don't think I'm good at.
Absolutely. And it takes a high sense of humility also to get to that point where, yes, there might be a demand, but you, the supplier, knows that this is not my space. No, I don't want to.
Even
and you have to
be very convinced.
Yes. Very, very convinced and give you reasons why you want to do that. Maybe even give you a commercial reason that wants to tempt you to do it. But you have to respectfully decline.
Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And that was the Aristotle quote on which we started this conversation. And I'd like to end on the same quote. And knowing that this is a mentoring platform, I want to believe that many young ladies look up to you as a role model. And I am just excited that Comfort and I have been part of this journey that God has graciously empowered you to live. And so before we sign up today, I'd like you to look into this camera and talk to that young person looking for space. You mentioned Rehoboth, looking for that day when they will say, I've found my space and I'm living the life. Just encourage them to borrow a word while they're on the journey that they will get to that place and it will be well with them.
Thank you very much, Reverend. So for every young person out there just wondering what to do, how to go about this thing called life, I just want to encourage you that one, you're not performing your life, you're actually living your life. So discount the need to want to impress rather than live. Take your life as personal and be intentional about the decisions that you make, why you make them, and how you live. Find the right people who you can talk to, who can support your journey, not just people who will say the things that you want to hear, but those who can tell you the truth. And then be willing and prepared to do the work. There's nothing that you're going to achieve that is great that's ever going to be easy. There are going to be times where it's tough and difficult, but you've been designed to succeed.
I love it. Designed to succeed. And for Petra, the design rests on 3 pillars, among others: deliberate, empowering, and commercial. The commercial is the cash. Deliberate, empowering, and commercial. I would like to encourage you to try out this assignment. If you met Mr. Gates, or depending on who is that cash person that you say you want to meet one day at the airport, if you met whoever, Warren Buffett, anyone, Dangote, and they were willing to finance your dream, and you met them in a space elevator where you have only 1 minute to share with them what your life is about and how they can sponsor it, what would you say to impress them? What would you say to communicate your value? Let's have this conversation on social media. For once, use your Facebook page to tell us what will be that 1 minute summary of your unique selling proposition, your statement of value, that thing that lets the world know you are here and you have a contribution to make. Let's try this and let's compare notes. Let's encourage each other as we build our lives together and make a statement to the world that we are here to stay We are here to contribute. So this has been a conversation about finding yourself. Let's continue next week as we explore another dimension of the quest to find our true identity. Petra, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you very much for having me, Reverend.
And I hope
thank
you
you so
enjoyed it.
much for being such an awesome part of my journey.
Oh, it's a blessing every day. And I love to Sam and the full squad.
They'll hear.
Right. So this has been Springboard, your virtual university, brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. My name is Albert Okran, saying God bless you, and God bless you.
He's a turn around.